Laughter exploded down the hallway like a grenade. Phones up, cameras rolling, voices chanting. Garbage rained over Tiana's shoulders, a half-eaten sandwich sliding down her jacket, soda splashing across her shoes. The new girl didn't move, didn't flinch. Her eyes calm, unblinking, locked on the bully standing over her, grinning. For a heartbeat, time froze. Then Tiana crouched, picked up a crushed paper cup from the floor, brushed it clean with her sleeve, and said in a voice so steady it cut through the noise, "Bravo, Echo, Sierra." The laughter faltered. Someone whispered, "Wait, what did she just say?" Another lowered their phone. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. No one in that hallway understood the words she'd spoken, but by the end of the day, they'd never forget them. Tiana Brooks had learned early that silence could be armor. At 15, she carried herself with a stillness that made people look twice, not because she demanded attention, but because she seemed untouchable by the chaos around her. While other kids filled the halls with noise and chatter, Tiana moved through them like calm through a storm. Her backpack was light, her steps even, and her eyes steady, always watching. Hanging from her keychain was a single worn pair of dog tags. The edges dulled from years of her thumb tracing them over and over again. They had belonged to her father, Sergeant Leon Brooks, a decorated Marine who had never returned from his final deployment. He used to call her his little cadet. On his last day home, before boarding the plane that would take him away forever, he knelt, pressed the tags into her palm, and said, "Stay sharp, baby girl. Control the noise. Remember your code." Those words became her compass. Honor, focus, silence before reaction. Tiana's mother, exhausted from working double shifts at the hospital, did her best to keep the world from feeling too empty. But when the nights grew long and the apartment too quiet,
Anna would sit by her window sketching in her worn notebook portraits of her father in uniform, or the world as he might have seen it.
sometimes she'd play his old voice memos just to hear him again. His tone was calm, clipped, disciplined, but every word carried love. "You can't control what others throw at you," he'd said once, "but you can control whether it sticks." When Tiana transferred to Jefferson High, her reputation as the new quiet girl spread faster than her name. Teachers admired her manners. Students didn't know what to make of her. She didn't gossip, didn't try to fit in, and never reacted when teased. She wasn't shishi, was composed, in a way that unsettled people who thrived on noise. That composure is what drew the wrong kind of attention from Megan Hale, the kind of girl who ruled the hallways through fear and laughter. Megan was tall, blonde, and confident in the way only someone deeply insecure could be. Her followers, two girls named Tara and Jen, laughed at every cruel joke she made, not because they found her funny, but because they needed her protection. The first time Megan noticed Tiana, it was during gym class. While the others laughed and complained, Tiana completed every drill quietly and perfectly, her movements sharp, controlled, like a soldier's daughter should be. When Coach Sanders called her form excellent, Megan's smile faltered. Jealousy has a way of sniffing out self-assurance, and Megan saw in Tiana everything she pretended to be: discipline, focus, and pride that didn't depend on anyone's approval. Soon, the whispers began. "Who walks like that? Why does she act like she's in the army or something? Bet she's too scared to talk." Tiana heard them all, but never reacted. She simply adjusted her backpack straps and kept walking, her spine straight, her eyes forward. Every time she ignored them, it only fueled Megan's need to break her calm. Because that's what bullies fear most: someone they can't provoke. Weeks passed. Megan's teasing turned into small accidents: a bump in the cafeteria line, a spilled drink near Tiana's books, a paper note shoved into her locker with a scrawl that read, "New girl thinks she's too good for us." Each time, Tiana stayed composed. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was training. But in the cruel theater of high school hallways, silence only paints a bigger target. Megan needed an audience, and Tiana's lack of reaction made her obsession burn brighter. Her friends whispered plans between giggles. They wanted to see if the quiet girl could finally break. What none of them knew was that Tiana had already been broken once by the folded flag at her father's funeral. Since that day, no insult could cut deeper. No laughter could echo louder than the sound of a military salute given to the man who'd never come home. And though she didn't know it yet, that same discipline, that same unshakable stillness, was about to be tested again in the middle of a crowded school hallway, under the harsh glow of fluorescent lights. With a trash can full of humiliation waiting above her head, the hallway buzzed with the usual chaos of lunchtime at Jefferson High lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking, laughter echoing like static. The air smelled faintly of pizza and cleaning spray, the kind of mix that never really left a school. Tiana moved through the noise with her usual calm rhythm. Her lunch tray balanced neatly in her hands, her books tucked under one arm. She wasn't rushing, but she wasn't lingering either. Every step she took seemed measured – purposeful. Megan Hale spotted her from the far end of the hall, leaning against a row of lockers surrounded by her two loyal shadows, Tara and Jen. The trio had been gossiping about weekend plans, but when Megan's eyes landed on Tiana, her smirk sharpened. "There's Miss Perfect posture again," Megan muttered, loud enough for her friends to hear. "She walks like she's in a parade or something." Tara giggled. "You mean like she's too good to look at the rest of us?" Jen rolled her eyes. "Maybe she's scared. She never talks to anyone." Megan pushed off the locker, her eyes narrowing. "No, she thinks she's better. You can see it. Look at her. Never smiles, never flinches. Like she's untouchable." The sound of their laughter drew a few more eyes, but Megan didn't care. Attention was her oxygen. And Tiana quiet? Composed Tiana was her new favorite way to breathe. As Tiana approached the middle of the hallway, the crowd thickened. She shifted her tray slightly, trying not to bump anyone. A group of freshmen brushed past her, laughing too loudly. And she just stepped aside, patient, controlled. That's when Megan made her move. She straightened, flicked her hair back, and took a deliberate step forward, cutting directly into Tiana's path. "Oops, sorry," Megan said too sweetly, bumping her shoulder hard. The tray jolted. A carton of milk toppled, splashing across the floor, splattering both their shoes. Laughter flared like a spark-catching flame. Tiana froze for half a second, then quietly bent down, setting her tray on the floor. Her voice was calm, even, "It's fine." But Megan wasn't finished. "Oh no, I feel terrible," she said, drawing out the words in mock sympathy. She crouched down as if to help, then nudged the milk carton further with her shoe, smearing it across the tiles. "Here, let me clean it up for you, new girl." More laughter. Phones were already coming out, red recording dots glowing like eyes in the crowd. Tiana straightened her back, meeting Megan's gaze for the first time. There was no anger in her expression, only quiet disappointment. Like she was watching someone fail a test they didn't even know they were taking. That look made Megan's smile twitch. She hated it, hated the way it made her feel small. "Ah, don't look at me like that," Megan said, her voice rising. "Smile, soldier girl. You're supposed to be so tough, right?" Tiana blinked once, slow and controlled, then reached down to pick up her tray. And that's when Megan grabbed the trash can. It was one of those large gray bins by the vending machines, half full of crumpled wrappers, paper boats, and sticky soda cups. With both hands, Megan lifted it, her friends gasping in delight. "Megan, don't," Jen whispered, half laughing, half nervous. But Megan was already moving. She tipped the trash can. Garbage cascaded over Tiana's books. Her tray, her shoes sticky, crumpled, humiliating. A half-eaten sandwich hit the floor with a wet smack. The hallway erupted. She did not just do that. Someone shouted, phones rose higher, "Get it on video." Another kid yelled, "Tia" stood perfectly still. For a long moment, she didn't blink, didn't breathe. The laughter swelled and swirled around her like smoke, but she didn't move. Her father's voice flickered in her memory steady, commanding the way it had always been. In chaos, breathe. In humiliation, stay tall. Her fingers tightened on the edge of her tray. Her chest rose, slow and even then, without a word. She crouched down and picked up a single crushed paper cup from the floor. She brushed it off gently, almost reverently, and whispered, clear enough for those nearest to hear, "Bravo, Echo, Sierra." It wasn't loud, but the tone, the precision cut through the noise like a blade. The laughter faltered. What did she just say? Jen muttered, her phone still raised. Tiana's eyes stayed on the floor, calm, deliberate. She placed the cup into the trash can. Upright this time, a boy near Biley Patterson, son of a Marine, stopped recording. His expression changed from amusement to shock. That's Marine code," he said quietly. "What?" Tara asked. He swallowed. "It's a phonetic sequence. Bravo, Echo, Sierra. It's how they spell BES. It could mean anything usually part of a message." Megan laughed, though her voice cracked slightly. "What? She's speaking robot now. It's gibberish." But Eli shook his head. "No," the way she said it calm, clipped. "My dad talks like that when he's dead serious." Megan turned back to Tiana, her smirk returning but thinner this time. "What did you say, new girl? Trying to sound tough?" Tiana rose slowly, straightening her jacket. Her eyes lifted until they met Megan's steady, unblinking. "It means," she said evenly, her voice cutting through the murmurs, "you just crossed a line." Silence fell so heavy it felt physical. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to fade. Megan blinked, unsure whether to laugh or step back. No one moved. No one spoke. And for the first time since the semester began, the Queen of Jefferson High felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: fear. Tiana didn't wait for a response. She simply adjusted her bag, turned, and walked down the hallway, leaving behind the mess, the silence, and a crowd of students who would never again see the quiet new girl the same way. Behind her, the trash dripped quietly onto the tile. Megan's hand trembled just slightly around the empty can. Bravo, Echo, Sierra. The words echoed in her head long after Tiana disappeared around the corner. Tiana didn't run. She didn't cry. She didn't even look back. Her steps were slow, steady, deliberate, the same cadence her father had taught her when she was little. Control the rhythm, and you control the moment. The hallway behind her was a stunned blur of faces and phones. No one spoke. Only the faint hum of lights and the sound of her boots on the polished tile followed her down the corridor. She turned the corner, her shoulders straight, her breathing even, and walked directly toward the principal's office. Inside, the air was cooler. The hum of a desktop computer filled the silence. Principal Mr. Harper looked up from his paperwork, surprised to see a student standing so rigid in the doorway. "Tiana, right?" he said, adjusting his glasses. "What can I do for you?" Tiana stepped inside, stopped exactly 3 feet from his desk, and clasped her hands in front of her. Her voice was calm, firm, and precise, every word chosen. "There was an incident in the main hallway during lunch," she said. "A student named Megan Hale assaulted me by dumping trash on my belongings. The event was witnessed by approximately 20 students, several of whom recorded it. I'd like to report it." Harper blinked. He was used to students storming in, angry or tearful, stories tumbling out between sobs. But this girl, her composure was unnerving. Professional. She wasn't here to beg. She was here to inform. He cleared his throat. "That's serious. Are you hurt?" "No, sir," Tiana said evenly. "Not physically. But it was a targeted act of harassment. I'd like the footage reviewed." Her tone wasn't pleading. It was factual, clipped like a field report. She even paused briefly after each statement, waiting for acknowledgement before continuing. "I understand," Harper said, leaning forward. "We'll handle this. You did the right thing coming here." Tiana nodded once. "Thank you." She turned to leave. "Wait," Harper said. "Would you like to call your parents? We can schedule a meeting." She hesitated for a second, then shook her head. "No, sir. My mother works nights. Please just make sure the video doesn't disappear." With that, she left. By the end of the day, whispers were running through every corner of Jefferson High. She didn't even flinch. She spoke code. Her dad was a Marine or something. "Did you see Megan's face?" The story spread like wildfire, carried by curiosity and guilt, shared by kids who didn't quite understand what they'd witnessed. By last period, the video had already been uploaded. The footage showed everything: the trash, the laughter, the moment of silence that followed, and then Tiana's calm voice echoing clearly, "Bravo, Echo, Sierra." Students paused the clip, rewound it, whispered theories. "That's military talk," someone said in the cafeteria. "My uncle's in the Navy," he said. "Those are call signs." "No, dude, it means something. Like a warning." By the time Megan got to her car that afternoon, she could feel the shift. People weren't laughing with her anymore. They were watching her, whispering behind hands. Some even smirked when she passed. The queen of the hallway had been dethroned, and she could feel the crown slipping. That evening at home, Tiana sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold beside her. The house was quiet, the kind of stillness that comes only after long days and longer memories. She glanced toward the mantel where her father's folded flag sat in its glass case, the nameplate shining faintly in the lamplight. Her mother, Angela Brooks, walked in, still wearing her nurse's scrubs. She dropped her keys on the counter, exhaled, and smiled tiredly. "Hey, baby. How was school?" Tiana hesitated. "It was fine." Angela gave her a look, the kind that said she wasn't fooled. "That fine doesn't sound fine." Tiana shrugged. "Something happened, but it's handled." Angela frowned, sitting down across from her. "What kind of something?" Tiana pulled out her phone, hesitated, and then turned it around so her mother could see. The video had already hit thousands of views on social media. The comments were split, some supportive, some cruel, all loud. Angela's face hardened as she watched. When it got to the part where the trash hit the floor, she whispered, "Oh, no." But she didn't speak again until the end, until the moment her daughter, calm and unbroken, said the words, "Bravo, Echo, Sierra." Angela's breath caught. For a second, she wasn't in her kitchen anymore. She was standing in a dusty training yard years ago, watching her husband instruct new recruits. His voice calm, commanding, echoing through the heat. Anyone can shout. Power isn't noise. Power is control. Her eyes welled. Tiana noticed. "Mom?" Angela blinked the tears away, smiling softly. "He'd be proud of you, baby. You did exactly what he taught you to do." Tiana looked down at her hands. "I didn't even think. It just came out." "The code." Angela nodded slowly. "That's because it's in you. You were raised with it." She reached across the table and squeezed Tiana's hand. "He used to tell me, when the world pushes, don't push back. Hold your ground. Make them remember who you are." Tiana's throat tightened. "I didn't want to embarrass anyone. I just wanted it to stop." "And you made it stop," her mother said. "Not by fighting, by standing taller than they could reach." For the first time that day, Tiana allowed herself a small smile. Back at the school, Principal Harper sat in his office late into the evening, replaying the security footage. The incident was clear as daylight, the laughter, the mockery, the trash spilling over. But what caught his attention wasn't the act itself. It was what came after. Tiana's expression, still, calm, in complete control. He'd been in education for 20 years. He'd seen outbursts, tears, rage, but never this kind of composure from a teenager. She didn't look frightened or angry. She looked like someone who'd already been through worse and decided nothing else could touch her. When the clip reached the moment she said the code, Harper paused it, leaned closer. The audio was faint, but her voice carried clarity, deliberate pronunciation, a rhythm that didn't waver. He whispered the words to himself. "Bravo, Echo, Sierra." He didn't understand it, but he felt it. Harper made a note to contact the school district's counselor the next morning. Not to discipline Tiana, but to find a way to make the other students understand what they'd witnessed. Meanwhile, across social media, the story grew. Military accounts shared the clip. Veterans commented things like, "Discipline. That's what real strength looks like." Her father would be proud. Those kids learned a lesson the course teaches on day one. Respect isn't given. It's earned. By the time the sun rose, Tiana had become a quiet symbol, a reminder that dignity could be louder than violence. But Tiana didn't know any of that yet. She woke early, dressed the same way she always did, clean, pressed, minimal. She tied her hair back, clipped her dog tags to her keychain, and looked in the mirror. For a moment, she saw her father's reflection behind hers, smiling. She could almost hear his voice. Anyone can shout, T, but real power is quiet. Real strength speaks once, and everyone listens. She whispered the words back to him, barely audible. Everyone listens. Then she picked up her bag and walked to school. The whispers started the moment she stepped through the front doors. Not cruel this time. Curious, reverent. Heads turned. Some kids looked embarrassed. Others smiled slightly, nodding at her in silent respect. Even Megan, standing by her locker, eyes rimmed red, looked down when Tiana passed. Tiana didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Because control wasn't about dominance. It wasn't about revenge. It was about composure and the quiet power of knowing exactly who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. The next morning, Jefferson High felt like a different world. The hallways usually buzzing with chatter were quieter. Conversations dropped to whispers when Tiana walked by, eyes tracking her not with ridicule, but with a strange mix of awe and discomfort. Her name was on everyone's lips, Tiana Brooks, the girl who spoke in code. Some called her brave. Others said she was weird. But all of them remembered how she didn't break. Megan. Hale's locker was surrounded by silence too, but for a different reason. Her two best friends, Tara and Jen, were nowhere to be seen. They'd stopped answering her texts. When she walked up to a group of students, the laughter would die immediately. Even the basketball team, who used to joke with her in the hall, avoided eye contact. The video had done more than humiliate Tiana. It had exposed Megan's power for what it really was, a performance built on fear. For the first time in years, Megan felt what it was like to stand alone. She slammed her locker shut and leaned against it, her throat dry. Her phone buzzed nonstop, messages, tags, reposts. The clip of her dumping trash had been viewed thousands of times, stitched and analyzed by people she'd never met. One comment in particular kept replaying in her mind. You can tell the quiet girl wasn't afraid. That's what broke them. Her stomach twisted. That line stung because it was true. When she'd emptied that trash can, she'd expected tears, panic, something to prove she still ruled this place. But instead, that calm stare, those three strange words, they'd paralyzed her. Bravo. Echo. Sierra. What did it even mean? By third period, Megan couldn't take the stairs anymore. She spotted Tiana sitting alone in the library, flipping through a book on aviation history. Her posture was perfect, her focus unshakable. Megan hesitated by the door. Her palms were sweating. This wasn't her usual move. She didn't walk up to people. People came to her, but the silence around her had become unbearable. She crossed the room slowly. Hey. Tiana looked up, calm as ever. Hi. Megan shifted awkwardly, glancing at the empty tables around them. We need to talk. Tiana closed her book carefully. About what? Megan swallowed. Her voice came out sharper than she meant. What you said yesterday. Those words, what was that? Some kind of threat? Tiana studied her. For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she spoke quietly, her voice steady. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. Megan frowned. A reminder of what? Tiana set her hands on the table. Bravo. Echo. Sierra. My father taught me that. It stands for be still. Evaluate. Stand your ground. It's what soldiers are trained to do under pressure. You don't panic. You don't react. You think. You choose. Megan blinked. The words hit something she didn't expect. Flicker of shame, maybe, or reflection. So what, you think you're better than me? That you're some kind of hero? Tiana's eyes softened. No, she said gently. I just think I know who I am. For a heartbeat, there was silence. No one had ever spoken to Megan like that, without fear, without hate, just honesty. It made her chest tighten in a way she didn't understand. She wanted to lash out, to say something cruel, but the words caught in her throat. All she could manage was a whisper. "You made me look like a joke." Tiana shook her head. "You did that to yourself." The honesty stung, but it wasn't said to hurt. It was said to free. That afternoon, both girls were called into the principal's office. Principal Harper sat behind his desk, his hands folded. "Megan, we've reviewed the footage. It's clear you were responsible for the incident. Normally this would be handled quietly, but since it's already public," he sighed, "we'll have to issue a suspension. 3 days minimum." Megan's eyes welled. "Please, sir, it wasn't supposed to." He raised a hand gently. "You don't need to explain. You'll also attend a disciplinary session with the counselor to discuss bullying and harassment." She nodded, numb lie. Then Harper turned to Tiana. "I want to commend you for how you handled yourself. You showed restraint and maturity. But I'm also sorry you had to experience that." Tiana's voice was soft. "I appreciate it, sir, but can I say something? Of course," she took a breath. "Don't punish her to make me feel better. Teach her why it was wrong." The room went still. Megan's head jerked up. She stared at Tiana, her mouth slightly open. Harper blinked, surprised. "That's a very compassionate thing to say." Tiana nodded. "My father always said revenge is easy. Understanding takes work. I don't need her to suffer. I just need her to see what she did." Megan swallowed hard. Her face flushed not from anger this time, but from shame. For the first time, she saw Tiana not as a target, but as a mirror, reflecting everything ugly she'd been avoiding. When the meeting ended, Harper excused them both. Tiana gathered her things quietly and left. Megan stayed behind, frozen. Harper looked at her. "You heard what she said?" Megan nodded. Her throat tightened. "Yeah, she didn't ask for revenge. She asked for growth. That's rare." Megan wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't get her. She should hate me." Harper smiled faintly. "That's the thing about strength, Megan. It doesn't always shout." That night, Megan sat on her bed, phone dark, the echo of Tiana's words circling her mind. "Be still, evaluate, stand your ground." She'd spent years building her confidence out of noise followers, laughter attention. But now, in the quiet, she saw how fragile it all was. Every cruel joke, every sneer it had been a wall to hide behind. She thought of Tiana's face, calm under humiliation. That wasn't weakness. That was power, the kind Megan had never known. Her mother knocked on the door. "Honey, everything okay?" Megan hesitated. "Not really. Want to talk about it?" For once, she didn't lie. "Yeah, maybe I should." The next morning, Tiana arrived early to class, as usual. When she opened her locker, a folded note slipped out and landed by her feet. She unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. "Bravo, Echo, Sierra. I understand now. I'm sorry, there was no name." But she didn't need one. Tiana smiled faintly, folded the note, and slipped it into her notebook right next to her father's dog tags. In the weeks that followed, the noise at Jefferson High slowly died down. Megan returned from her suspension quieter, more distant, but changed. She started spending time in the library, sometimes sitting across the room from Tiana, talking but never glaring either. The other students noticed. The jokes stopped. The whispers shifted. The story that had started as humiliation had become something else, a lesson about strength, dignity, and the difference between silence and weakness. And Tiana, she never brought it up again, because some victories aren't meant to be celebrated. They're meant to be understood in the end. The BES code spread beyond Jefferson High. A teacher mentioned it in class one day when talking about resilience. Students began using it as shorthand. When someone panicked before a test or froze during a presentation, a friend would whisper, "Bravo, Echo, Sierra." It became a quiet movement, a reminder that control, not chaos, was the real mark of strength. And every time Tiana heard someone whisper it in the hall, she'd smile, because it meant her father's lesson had survived. Not through vengeance, not through fear, but through understanding. The week that followed felt different. The air in Jefferson High seemed lighter, like something ugly had been lifted off the school's shoulders. Teachers noticed how the whispers had quieted, how laughter no longer carried that sharp edge of cruelty. Students weren't afraid to be kind anymore. It all came to a head when Principal Harper called for a school-wide assembly. The announcement came over the intercom one morning, this Friday. We'll be holding a special assembly on integrity, courage, and respect. Attendance is mandatory. Dress appropriately. Rumors spread immediately. Some thought it was another talk about bullying. Others guessed it had to do with the video. And though no one said it aloud, everyone knew this was about Tiana Brooks. Friday morning arrived. The gym was packed. Students seated on bleachers, teachers lining the walls. The hum of murmurs filled the air. Tiana sat quietly near the back, her backpack by her feet, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She hadn't been told what the assembly was really about, but she had a feeling. Principal Harper walked to the microphone. His voice echoed across the gym. Good morning, everyone. I called this assembly because something happened in our school that got a lot of attention, not just here, but across the country. A ripple went through the crowd. Everyone knew what he meant, he continued, his tone steady. We saw what bullying looks like in 2025, how easy it is for cruelty to go viral. But we also saw something more powerful. What control looks like. What grace under pressure looks like. He paused. Then his gaze turned toward Tiana, and we saw it in one of our own. Students shifted, turning to look at her. Some smiled softly. Some looked ashamed. Megan sat 3 rows down, her hands twisting in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. Harper went on. Today we have someone here who can help us understand what true strength means. Please welcome retired Marine Captain Elias Monroe, man who served alongside Sergeant Leon Brooks. The gym erupted in murmurs. Tiana froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Her father's name, from the side of the gym, tall man in uniform, stepped forward, graying hair, posture still perfectly straight. His boots echoed against the polished floor. When he reached the microphone, the gym fell silent. Morning, he said, voice deep and calm. I'm Captain Monroe. I served with Sergeant Brooks in the Marine Corps for 8 years. He was one of the finest men I ever knew. Tiana's chest tightened. Now, I didn't come here to lecture you, Monroe continued. I came here to tell you about a man who believed that strength isn't about shouting the loudest or hitting the hardest. It's about knowing who you are when the world tries to shake you. He looked around the gym, eyes scanning every face. Leon Brooks lived by a simple code: be still. Evaluate. Stand your ground. Sound familiar? Every head turned toward Tiana. Monroe smiled gently. I heard his daughter said those same words not long ago. Tiana's breath caught. Yeah, Monroe said softly. Sergeant Brooks used to say that code could get you through anything from a battlefield to a high school hallway. He believed calm was the purest form of courage. He paused, then added, and from what I saw in that video, his daughter carries that same fire. The gym erupted into applause. It wasn't the wild, noisy kind. It was deep and rhythmic, real respect. Tiana felt her face grow warm. She didn't know where to look. Her throat tightened, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. Monroe nodded toward her. Tiana, would you stand, please? She rose slowly, her dog tags glinting faintly under the gym lights. Monroe's voice softened. Your father would have been proud to see you today. You honored his legacy, not by fighting back, but by standing tall. For a moment, she couldn't move. The applause swelled again, louder this time, and even the teachers joined in. Across the crowd, Megan covered her mouth, tears pooling in her eyes. After the assembly ended, students began filing out quietly. No one laughed or whispered now. The air was still, thoughtful. Tiana packed her bag, walking slowly toward the exit when she heard a voice behind her. Tiana. She turned. Megan was standing there, shoulders slumped, eyes red. She looked smaller, somehow in size, but in spirit. I wanted to say something, Megan stammered. I know sorry doesn't fix what I did, but I mean it. I'm sorry for everything." For a moment, Tiana just studied her. No anger, no triumph. Just quiet understanding. Then she nodded once. "Then be better. That's all my dad would want." Megan's lip trembled. She nodded quickly, eyes filling again. "I will." Tiana smiled softly. "Good." They stood there in silence for a long second before Megan turned and walked away lighter, freer than she'd been in years. That evening, the sun dipped low over the rooftops. The sky was streaked with amber and violet as Tiana walked home. Her backpack slung over one shoulder, her father's dog tag swinging gently in her hand. The air smelled like autumn, cool, crisp, alive. She paused on the bridge that crossed the small creek behind her neighborhood. The water shimmered in the fading light, the surface rippling like memory. She closed her eyes. For a moment, she could almost hear him again, his low, steady voice from years ago, the night before his last deployment. "You don't need to fight the whole world, baby girl. You just need to stand tall when it matters." A tear slipped down her cheek, but she smiled through it. The world had finally understood what her father had taught her. Not through revenge, not through victory, but through example. She whispered into the wind, barely audible, "Bravo, Echo, Sierra," and in her heart, she could almost hear him answer, calm, proud, unwavering, "That's my soldier." Tiana wiped her face, breathed deep, and looked up at the glowing horizon. She wasn't the new girl anymore. She wasn't the quiet one. She was her father's legacy alive, unbroken, and finally understood. And as she walked the rest of the way home, each step steady and strong, the sound of her dog tags echoed softly against her chest, like a heartbeat that would never stop. In a world where cruelty gets clicks and mockery trends faster than truth, Tiana Brooks stood for something timeless. She didn't raise her voice, didn't throw a punch, didn't let anger write her story. She stood still. She spoke in code and discipline, in legacy, in love. Her message wasn't about revenge. It was about reminding the world that control is power and grace is strength. She didn't humiliate her bully. She transformed her. She turned pain into purpose, and in doing so, she carried her father's lesson forward for everyone watching. Because the truth is, strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it stands calm in a storm and says, "I know who I am." If this story moved you, you believe courage still matters, that respect is worth defending, that dignity deserves a voice, then hit subscribe. Let's build a community that honors stories like Tiana's, where every act of quiet courage gets heard loud and clear, because the next time the world tries to bury you in its noise, remember her code: Bravo, Echo, Sierra. Be still, evaluate, stand your ground now, share this story, and stand tall with her.